Carol was actually telling me an amazing story uh, that I think, didn't you, about your dad? How long ago was it that you found out about his bloodline?
I've always known since I was a child that we were direct descendants of the Vikings, Eric the Red and Leif Erikson. That was actually incorporated into my studies, when I was a younger child, and there was always a big emphasis, on coming from the Norse lineage, and there was a lot of pride involved in that. And, we lived the Viking farm life. My father had a 90-acre farm in Minnesota, and, it was just a very primitive farm life with cows and pigs and chickens. My father grew alfalfa and wheat, and so they really stuck very closely, to our heritage.
Okay. And so you were telling me, well, I don't know. You know what? You just tell your story the way you want to, about if you want to include your dad crossing over, or you want to start with your life. Just tell us from the beginning of your beginning.
Okay, well, I'm kind of using my book as a guideline. I'm not going to give the whole thing away, but the book, I have a very good editor, Mary Kay Bates, who is actually, and I'm very fortunate to have her. She was actually the right-hand gal for the famous playwright Tennessee Williams back in the 80s, before he died. So I feel very honored to have such a good editor. And so I'm not going to mess with perfection. So I'm just going to go through the guidelines of the manuscript that she and I have created over the last 3 years, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so chapter 1 in the book is the early years, and my father is waking me up early in the morning, and he says, "Harata kunta kimpale," which means "wake up, gold nugget," in Finnish. And I think I was about between 4 and 5 years old at this time. This would have been 1966, 1967, in a very cold Minnesota morning. And so he gets me up, and I said, "Where are we going?" And then he says, in the Finnish language, "Me olemme menossa utti," which in Finnish means we're going to the Air Force Base. So that was my father's nickname. Utti was my father's nickname for Duluth Air Force Base, which was about 150 miles, I believe, south of our farm. And this is when I have my first reflections of what I now know was not only MKUltra government experimentation, but also a little side project. I was a side project for Dr. Stanley Milgram, who is best known for his obedience to authority experiments, but he also liked to experiment on children. So his experiment on me and other children at Duluth Air Force Base was called the Cyranoid. And I'll just give you a little background on what a Cyranoid is. It's based on I think his name was Sir Edmund Rostand. He was a 17th century playwright, and his character Cyrano de Bergerac was a brilliant but ugly man. So he used this good-looking man Christian to win Roxanne's heart, and he would whisper things. He would whisper things from the bushes into Christian's ears to say to Roxanne. So he was like a shadower so that he could win Roxanne's heart. Well, that was the whole premise of Dr. Milgram's Cyranoid experiments. So what he would do is he would use like a contraption at some points, like a radio receiver and an earpiece for his child subjects, or sometimes he would just coach us. Saying things, memorizing certain things. And so then the whole experiment is to send you out into society to see if the deception could be detected, whether people would know that the child is being coached like a parent, or whether they just think, you're a child prodigy and you're really smart. So that was part of my experiments at Duluth Air Force Base. I was also drugged while I was there. I was given narcotics. I was subjected to electroshock therapy, forced ingestion of urine, sensory deprivation, and a whole laundry list of things. And of course, my parents, I had learned, had gotten roped into this because my father had come into America illegally from Finland right before World War II started. He came into Boston Harbor, and he was actually intercepted by what was called the OSS at that time. That was the precursor of the CIA. And they basically said, okay, young man, you have two choices. You can either be deported back to Finland, or you can participate in this program. And so here it is, 80-something years later, we're still going through it. So at Duluth Air Force Base, I was also subjected to instruments being inserted to my orifices, different carvings on my arms and my legs, which I still have scars on my body to this day. And of course, my upbringing was very difficult, especially going to school. One part of the book, I'm talking about how my teachers would always say, well, how come your little girl is so nervous? How come she's like so nervous and everything in school? And then I put in the book that, little did my teachers know that I was moonlighting as an MKUltra guinea pig. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let's see, trying to get to the.
And while you're finding your place, they're asking in chat the name of your book. It is Escape from Palm Beach, right?
Yes, and so Mary and I are re-editing the book. It'll be released probably late this winter, and so the new incarnation of the book is going to be called "A Good Name Is Better Than Money," and that's going to include that's actually going to include the prequel, which is how my father basically got forced into this program by the Nazi doctors, I should say.
Wow. So nobody else, like you were the only one in your school that you know of that was part of this MKUltra and Cyranoid programs?
Yes, as far as I know, I didn't detect anything in any of my other friends. I mean, other than going to the Air Force Base and things like that, I mean, I didn't detect any of my schoolmates were involved in it. But, when you're a child, you're just on the playground, happy, trying to be carefree as much as possible. And, they could have been, because it was a very remote area.
Okay. So from what ages, from the earliest that you can remember to the latest that you were involved in MKUltra?
Well, I can't remember anything before age 4 to 5, which would have been 1966 and 1967. And then it went on until about 1970, and Dr. Milgram actually sent a tutor by the name of Mrs. Stein to further my studies. Like, he had me reading like Tolstoy's War and Peace, like, when I was 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And what I can gather from my childhood memories of Dr. Milgram is he loved to do social experiments. He loved to blow people's minds. He wanted to see if anybody could detect these deceptions, and nobody did. Everybody thought that I was just a really smart kid.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty cool, though, for a kid. Not the other stuff you went through, but I mean, I think, that's pretty cool to let everybody think you're super smart. So what was his, I mean, I think when we talked, you said his main goal was just he liked to play with people.
Well, he what I can gather now, he wrote extensively on the obedience to authority, which he conducted at Harvard and Yale. And he wanted to see if people under the pressure of authority would administer electroshock treatments to people. And and it was just a phantom type of thing. There wasn't really any electricity going through it. But if you look up his obedience to authority experiments, they indeed would give bigger doses of electricity to the subject if pressured by an authority figure, which was Dr. Milgram. And so that was pretty sadistic.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a sadistic man. I mean, I think everybody that researches him will agree on that.
Wow. So basically, you didn't, at these ages, there was no, other than the torture, the mind control, and that kind of thing, there was no sexual overtones at this time, no trafficking at this time.
No. Like we spoke the other day, Lily, it seemed like they compartmentalized your life. Like your life is planned out. You're gonna be a lab rat from ages 4 to 8. And then you're going to be a porn star from ages whatever to whatever. And then you're going to be you know what I mean? It's like a whole succession, like a whole protocol of stuff that they've got planned out for you.
So at any time were you in a group with other people that, because I know they weren't at your school, but like, did you kind of trend with other people? Did you know other victims, or were you just solitary?
No, I was solitary until the human trafficking aspect started later on.
Okay. All right. Wow. I mean, I did, I don't know if you caught it. I did a live a few days ago just to educate people about MKUltra a little bit. But and we just scratched the surface just to let people know that it is a legit thing. It's been declassified. But what do you feel is the worst thing that you took away from the MKUltra part?
Well, I have some good friends in the human rights movement. I've been involved in a UN ladies group for about 17 years now, and we talk among ourselves. And I've been to Canada as well, and we've had our little late night powwows with wine and so forth. And so what we talk away, and there's a lot of expletives while we're having our powwows too. And it's like they were just sadistic son of a bitches that used government grants and the guise of experimentation and furthering psychological techniques, under the ruse of using it against the against the communists. You know what I mean? We were just like lab rats who were abused, sexually abused, and whatever for their sadistic pleasure, honestly.
Wow. It's hard for people, everyday people, to imagine that these things really happen. And like, what do you tell people when they question you on it?
Well, it's like you and I were talking the other day. It's like, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be totally normal. I mean, I've gone through a lot of deprogramming sessions, especially with my ladies in the UN who are registered nurses, by the way. They're in the documentary, actually. And so they've helped me to deprogram to some degree, but I don't know what all alters that they built into me. I don't know all of the trigger words. I do know some of the trigger words. Like I know one is anti-establishmentarianism, which is just a long word for being against the government. Mm-hmm. So what I've been able to conclude is they were trying to see if they could turn me into a revolutionary or turn me into like a dissident, which I have been. I've been to protests and I've been an activist in one cause or another all my life. So I think they accomplished what they were after, actually.
Yeah. Now, you used a term, I know exactly what you're talking about, but explain to people who are not familiar with MKUltra, what is an altar? Because they're I don't even know if they caught that, but if they did, they're probably thinking, huh? What does she mean?
Oh, an altar is, they like to get their test subjects. And I can't remember back when I was 3. I only have memories from 4 onwards, but I'm pretty sure they got me when I was 3. From what I've been reading, they like to get you around that age because your personality has not really developed at that point. And with the torture, and so forth, they can actually, I'm just going to say, split your personalities. I can take the license and say that they split your personalities, and so then they can control you with trigger words and subliminal suggestions. So, and you're not even aware, like your mother and your father are taught what your triggers are, and if they want to get you under control, all they have to do is say that word or that phrase, and then they can get you to do the desired, get the desired result.
Right. And okay, so do you have more than one altar, I guess, or
Yeah, I have 3 distinct personalities. Honestly, I have one that's like very like rugged and like an outdoorsy type of person. Like I've been involved in mountain climbing and caving and cave diving and everything when I was younger, um and then there's like a very feminine one, and then there's one that's like very like nerdy, like very studious.
yeah,
And I think I embrace my nerdy side the most because of all of the very difficult curriculum that they pushed on me at an early age. I mean, who makes an 8-year-old read Tolstoy from cover to cover and then write an essay on it? You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Have you ever been aware of a situation where you were triggered and did something out of like your normal character, or is that all blocked?
No, no, not at all. I was telling my friend Scott in New York, he's actually my advisor who he actually gets credit in my book as being my advisor. But we were talking the other day and I was like really mortified with this certain memory that I had. And it was, I guess I was in my mid 20s. This was back in the 80s. I was in my mid 20s. And for some reason, I got all dressed up in this really nice red outfit, just like red like a monochromatic, like red outfit, red top, red skirt, red shoes, and the whole thing. And my kids were off with their dad somewhere. I don't know. They went on a trip with their dad somewhere, and we had a little pub around the corner. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the pub and have a couple of drinks, right?
Yeah.
And when I walked in, the song by Chris Isaak, "Lady in Red," was playing very coincidentally.
Wow.
And there wasn't really that many people in the bar that night, and there was very few women, but it was mostly men. And I got up on the floor and did this like really intricate, like arabesque dance to "Lady in Red." And then I went to the bar and I knocked back my vodka and orange juice and I walked out. And so then there was an article. Then there was an article on their website saying, have you ever seen the Lady in Red again? She was here and then she just blew out like a breeze.
Wow. Wow.
And it was so, but that's still online all these years later. And I look at that and it's like, I'm really embarrassed about it.
Wow. But that's what people don't understand. When you are triggered a certain way and you have an alter, like you have no control. You don't even know why you're doing what you're doing. You have an alter, and when you're done, like you're done, and you're kind of like, okay, you're back. What would you say to your normal self when you come out of it?
Yeah, you just think that this is, one, everybody's multifaceted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you just think that it's another facet of your personality, but it's to the extreme to the extreme degree, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so were they planning, I'm assuming, because the government's always, trying to have more power, more whatever. So do you think some altars are used in war or in assassinations and things like that?
Yes, and did you get the link that I sent you to my mentor, Lynn Moss Sharman?
I did. I have not had a chance to watch it yet. Like I want to really sit down with a notebook and watch her. But I'll
Yes,
put it up.
Lynn was my mentor. Lynn was a Canadian survivor of MKUltra who lived in Ontario, Canada. I stayed with her actually back in the early 2000s, and she related to me, and you can read it in the article as well with Canadian Radio. That she was actually trained to be an assassin, and she was a subject of we won't call them doctors, we will call them torturers. Dr.
Yeah.
Jose Delgado, psychologist Colin Ross, Martin Orney. They were all basically coached by the Nazi doctors that fled after the Nuremberg trials, in Germany. And so they taught Dr. Delgado, basically got a hold of her and put all these implants in her. I won't go into too much detail. You can read the article. And taught her, basically, she told me herself that she knew how to skin a human being like three different ways.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's scary. That's scary. I want to ask you, one of in the chat, Aries Fire was talking about the DUMBs, the deep underground, was that military bases? Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, but I have been to Duluth Air Force Base many times as a child. It's actually called the Little Wing. It's like a giant hangar with all these little rooms in it. And I've also been to the University of Minnesota as well.
Okay. So that's where your stuff went. Yeah, I mean, I've heard about these DUMBs for, I don't know, years now. I don't know anything about them, but I mean,
I will tell you this much. Dr. John Moore, who is, I'm not going to say ex-CIA. There's no such thing as ex-CIA. I mean, once you're in it, you're in it. He said that there was about several $1 trillion missing out of the Federal Reserve, and he was actually enlisted to find out what happened to it. Mm-hmm. And so that was slowly pilfered out by the dark side to build these underground bases. And I understand that they run all over the United States. You can run cars through them. There's a rail line down there. They're completely stocked with about 10 years worth of all the necessary things, food, water. They have metal halide lights down there. They have, like grow centers, like what you would use for marijuana, only they use it to grow vegetables and fruits. So, it's a quite extensive network of tunnels that runs all over the United States. And and John Moore said that that's where that $3 trillion went to.
Now, is that, and this is just a side note, but I remember on September 10th, 2001, because I was an avid listener to, the news at that time, not anymore, but, there was this huge news breaking about these trillions of dollars that were missing. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to hear about this for the next, 9 months. And that's all the news is going to be. But then on September 11th, of course, everything was wiped from everybody's memory except those events. So is that maybe where this is coming from?
Hello?
Yeah. Are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, could you? No, we got a little bit of pss, pss, pss. But did you hear my question about the missing money on September 10th, 2001? It was in the trillions. But then September 11th happened the next day, and nobody asked where the money was.
Yeah, that was what you call a subterfuge. They love to use that Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. So they like to have little side diversions, to deflect away from what's really going on.
Sure. Okay, well, I want to hear more about you. So take us back to wherever you want to go next.
Okay, so we have a thumbnail sketch of what went on in the early years with Duluth Air Force Base and the University of Minnesota. So I'm a Cyranoid, basically. I call myself Dr. Milgram's favorite parrot. Because he liked to, he loved to have you memorize phrases and things, and then read like college textbooks. I mean, read and study things that are like way out of your age range, and just basically send you out into the public and watch the fun, happen, I guess. And he popped in and out of my life up until I was about 12 years old, but not with any more experiments beyond the age of 8. He showed up at my church once, and I was mortified. I guess he just wanted to see how I turned out or whatever.
Wow.
And I was already a young mother by that time.
Wow.
And I guess he thought that I wouldn't recognize him after all those years. And I basically said, I wouldn't have recognized you if you had you gotten a nose job, because he has a very prominent nose, like flared nostrils or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I recognized him.
Wow. But you didn't feel threatened by him or anything, just uncomfortable?
Well, he was kind of like my daddy when, from the time I was a young child. So, I guess I have something called Stockholm syndrome, where what is it when you sympathize with your captor?
Right. Yeah. Happens all the time. And then you had told me, tell them what you told me about your mom and the little bluebirds and Project Bluebird.
Well, yeah, they like to. Now, some of these projects went on in the 50s before I was born, but what I can reflect back on is that they like to take bits and pieces of these different projects, previous projects, ongoing projects, and then doing beta tests for future projects, and kind of like piece them together like a patchwork quilt. Yeah. That's the best way I can explain it. And and so yes, my mother would say a trigger phrase to me. The birdies are singing. You see the pretty bluebirds, they're singing. And like, I would be triggered to do like all these things, like go out and milk the cows and do gardening. They had me doing a lot of hard stuff when I was little kids. I guess that was all part of the protocol. But as I was telling you the other day, Lily, is that the thing that I take away from Monarch programming, which is fashioned after the monarch butterfly, the cocoon, the chrysalis, and all of that. When you're under this programming, you do get that sensation sometimes, especially when you're triggered, that you're like looking through a thin, like almost like a thin chiffon or cheesecloth type of fabric. Like sometimes it would be like people would be talking, and it would be like it would be muffled. It would like be the boo 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 boo, like whatever. But you could. It wasn't really that intelligible. It wasn't that easy to understand. So it's a very strange and surreal feeling to be under the influence of Monarch programming, and it's very difficult to program from it. And like I said, I don't think I'll ever be fully integrated. So I have to be like very careful with myself. I have to, be very careful with be very organized so I can run my businesses and just make sure that, my family's taken care of and day-to-day life runs somewhat smoothly.
Does your family know like some of your triggers, or because maybe you don't even know, you can't tell them, or are they aware of things to look for?
Yeah, my middle daughter was aware of my suicide programming. She had said something one day. I can't even remember what the trigger word was, but I went. She said something to me, and it was accidentally like a trigger phrase, and I actually went into the kitchen and got a butcher knife and tried to slit my wrist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. That is horrifying.
Yeah, it's very frightening. But that was before I had a lot of good helpers along the way. My ladies, Jean and Linda, the nurses in the UN who have helped me with my deprogramming. A very nice gentleman by the name of Dr. Preston Bailey, who is I don't know if he's still alive. He may not be. A very nice Baptist minister who used to run the First Baptist Church in Tampa. So yeah, it's been a relay race of people, helping me and trying to get, get me integrated again.
Wow. I can't imagine, and I know we're supposed to be on the early part of your life, but I really can't imagine how terrifying it must be to not know if something's going to trigger you and you are going to do something either to harm yourself or someone else. That's like a ticking time bomb that you're living with.
Yeah, well, no harm to anybody else. Lynn was the assassin. I was the revolutionary.
So what do you think your job was supposed to be then? Just to get people riled up, or what?
No, I think that like I said, anti-establishment. One of my main serenoid triggers from the time I was 4 or 5 was anti-establishmentarianism, which is being against the government. I think they wanted to see if they could turn somebody into a revolutionary with all of these trigger words and conditioning and programming and schooling. And it worked out okay because I've been an activist in one cause or another all my life.
Kind of backfired.
My latest one is the UN, which I've been involved in off and on for the last 17 years.
Wow. That is that's amazing. You know what? But God has a way of taking evil and turning around for good. So they had a plan, but so did He, and you're using all that for great things. Wow, it's amazing. Y'all in the chat have probably seen Miss Carol in comments and stuff on my channel for months, and I didn't. She would sometimes say some very intriguing things, but I didn't realize that she was an activist, and I didn't want to pry too much. I thought if she wants to talk, but yeah. So when I heard your story, Carol, I was just so amazed at the amazing things that you're doing. But I don't, I know we've got a whole lot more to cover, and I don't know what your time frame is tonight. How far you want to go, if you want to stop. I don't want to wear you out for sure because I know this is difficult.
We can go. Like I said, I'm using my book as a guideline because Mary is a super duper editor, my friend, and so I'm just using it as a guideline because it's somewhat coherent even when I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm kind of asking questions that I think people might want to know, or asking you to explain things that they may not know about. So yeah, anyway, so go on to wherever you want to go next.
Okay, so after all the experimentation and all that good stuff, that stopped when I was around 8, and really no more of that, except I did get a good education as a young child, and all of my education was CIA curriculum, because that's what they wanted me to have. I mean, I didn't have any choice in the matter. My father was roped into this when he was a illegal immigrant at 17 years old. So we just got, we all just got absorbed into this thing by proxy. So my father was your typical. My father was a high-level Freemason. He wore the rings. He wore the onyx, beautiful onyx ring with the G and the square and the compass in the middle. And he was gone a lot. He had mistresses. Like most Freemasons are, pretty much a lot of them are philanderers. I'm not going to generalize and say they all are, but many of them are.
Yeah.
And so that was. My mother got all fed up with, all of the womanizing, and she divorced him when I was about 11, going on 12 years old. This was, 1973, 1974. And so my father was very upset about that because she was trying to, I think she was a conscientious objector. She didn't really like everything, I don't think, but she just had to go along to get along. So after she kicked my father out of the house, then my father was trying desperately to, keep me in the program and keep me in the protocol for what they wanted me to do next. And so that was human trafficking.
Wow.
And so what he did was he sent some Masonic teenagers. They were in their late teens, 17, 18, 19-year-old. I think there was a 20 or 21-year-old. It was a gang of older teenagers. And he had them start giving me LSD and THC, marijuana, lots and lots of alcohol. And so this was a grooming process to get me under control, to make me more malleable, so that they could, get me into the child pornography. And then the leader of this teenage Masonic gang was Charles. And they started taking me to different locations around Palm Beach, mostly high-end hotels, but some condos and things of that nature. And so then in, it was in 1976, they got this Dutch filmmaker, Ina, who is a child pornographer, and they cast me in this underground film series. In Dutch, it's called Cromwell Rasier, which translated into English means Little Crooked Swamp. And that's very fitting because that's what Palm Beach is. It's a little crooked swamp.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and they would take me to different locations. And so basically it was based on my Scandinavian, the film was, or the series I should say, was based on my Scandinavian heritage, saying, okay, well, it was about human traffickers kidnapping a girl. So they kept true to the script and basically trafficking me and selling the films on the dark market, the black market, which is what Cromwell Rasier was about. And so they used to take me to, high-end steakhouses and get me all obliterated and stuff, and always trying to, make me feel like I was so special, always trying to compliment me and all that garbage. So after about a year of that, Charles could see that I was getting very, it was like I was going to fly. I was going to run. He knew it. He just knew it. And he was like, okay, well, we're going to get married in a few years, I'm going to marry my trafficker. And I told him, I said, I'm not marrying you. I'm like, I'm 14 years old, how old are you?
Yeah.
Like, what, almost 20. I'm not marrying, a grown man or whatever.
Jeez.
And so then I started making plans for my escape. And so while this Masonic gang was out one day and they left me alone at the house where they did all of their activities, I picked up a newspaper, and on the cover was the Speleological Society of Florida, which is a caving club at the University of Gainesville. And this guy, Paolo, was looking for teenagers to go on caving expeditions around the United States. So I started contacting him, and I just cobbled together what little money I could, little drips and drabs of money here. And so then I basically made my escape up to Gainesville and started going on caving expeditions, with these really nice people or whatever. So that went on for several months. And then when I got back, Charles was very mad. He was very incensed that, that I broke away and I wasn't making the films anymore. He was threatening me. He left a dead duck on my porch one night with a strangled neck.
Oh my God.
To try to intimidate me into coming back. In other words, saying, if you don't come back, this is what's going to happen to you. Another time, he came by my house early in the morning. My mother had already gone to work. He was banging on all the windows and the doors. He broke some of the jalousie windows out of my mother's bathroom where I was hiding. And so that went on for several months, the threats and intimidation and the stalking. And then finally it died down. And so then I kind of breathed a sigh of relief, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe he finally gave up.
Wow. That's absolutely terrifying. Especially when you're young. I mean, it's terrifying as an adult, but so how old were you, I guess, when you got out of the trafficking? And well, hold up. Because I know people are wanting to know. I know that you've talked about your family and that your dad was involved in this stuff. He kind of didn't have a choice, but I mean, do you ever remember any time or anything where they, I don't know, tried to say no for you? Did you ever have any advocacy to not be sent to these places?
Well, and I bring it out in the book. I think it's about midway in the book. I talk about how when we left Minnesota in 1969, my father sold the whole farm, lock, stock, and barrel in an auction. And on the way, we were supposed to be going to Berkeley, California, which, if you know, the University of Berkeley figured very prominently into MKUltra, and that's where they were taking me.
Oh, wow.
And so that's, my father made a big production about it, big splash about it. Hey, family, we're all moving to Berkeley, California, the land of milk and honey. That's the way my father talked. And my father was very, very colorful and flamboyant. And somewhere around Illinois, all of a sudden he made the announcement, and we're all packed up in the car with the U-Haul, in tow, right? And he goes, well, I decided we're not going to Berkeley, California. We're going to Palm Beach, Florida. And so we're all kids and we're all looking at each other, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we don't have any choice, do we?
Yeah.
And my mother was very distraught. I could see that my mother was like a quiet storm. I could see that she was very distraught, over all of it. So, long story short, I think my father was trying to get me out of the further experimentation, like the poking and the prodding and the cutting and things, I think he was trying to get me out of that part of it.
Okay. But then it got worse, because then you ended up being trafficked.
Yeah, well, in those brotherhoods and stuff, and my family has Illuminati roots also from from Europe too, because my middle name Magnus, the first king of Norway, was called Magnus. So when I went to Finland, my uncle has volumes and volumes, leather-bound volumes, in mahogany bookcases about our lineage. So they take it very seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't want the young ones to leave the old country, because they want to keep the bloodline going. Because there's money involved in that, and it's a very very complicated thing.
Wow. So, how old were you then when you were able to finally get out of the trafficking?
Okay, so the turning point the turning point is, and I'll read the outline basically from chapter 4, which is perps and handlers. So I had met not my Kading friends in Gainesville, but I met some new friends in Palm Beach, and we were just a bunch of hippies. My friends were musicians, and we were like typical hippies back then. We just loved going to music festivals. I mean, we didn't, outside of being trafficked, I really didn't do any hard drugs. I smoked a little bit of marijuana and drank a couple beers once in a while, but I wasn't a drug addict. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the emphasis was on music. They were musicians and singers, and we just loved that. We just really loved that. So it was August of 1976. We started out to a bluegrass festival, which was west of Palm Beach. And I guess it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And we stuck our thumbs out on the highway because that's what hippies did. We all hitchhiked back then because we didn't have cars, right?
Right.
So this Econoline van happens along, and it's two guys in their 20s. And they're like, well, are you all going to the festival? And we said yes. And then we got in, and maybe 10 minutes later, after we've been talking for a little bit, the passenger is sitting in one of those bucket seats that swivel. I guess, I don't know if they're common now. I guess they are. But it's like a bucket seat, and he turned the bucket seat on the swivel and turned like a snub-nosed 38 at the three of us. And he basically said, okay, well, your little friend there ran away from some people, and we've come to get her. And so if you cooperate, nobody gets hurt. And so they ended up driving us from Palm Beach up into the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. I guess we were on the road maybe 10 or 12 hours. They stopped and got us some hamburgers, and they had put, I don't know if they put LSD or orange sunshine. It was most likely orange sunshine because that was very popular then. And so a little while after eating the hamburgers, we started to have hallucinations, which made us even more terrified. And we were just shaking and trembling, really scared. And then it was about, I guess, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We must have been getting close to the destination where they were. I feel like they were going to kill our guy friend and then just take us and have their way with us. And I honestly think it was going to be a snuff film. And that's why my heart goes out to Libby and Abby. I'm very close. I'm very close to that case because I feel like that's how we would have ended up also.
Wow.
And so so while the passenger looked away for just 1 minute, just very briefly, and they were at a slow roll. They weren't driving fast. They were at a slow roll, maybe, I don't know, less than 10 miles an hour, because I think they were looking for a turnoff to where they were going to take us. And while the passenger was, distracted and talking to the driver, trying to find a turnoff, our guy friend whispered in our ears, and he said, on the count of 3, you all, 1, 2, 3. And he slid open the door and he pushed us down the mountain. And then he was looking around for a place to hide. He saw a big briar patch. I think everybody knows that's a thorn bush. Mm-hmm. And, he's like, we're going to go hide in this thorn bush because they're going to be coming back. And it's like, well, how do you know that? He goes, I just know that. And he was a very, very smart guy, a very good musician, very smart guy. He goes, because they're close to where they were taking us. We were close to our destination. So they're going to wherever they were going to take us to get help, to come after us. So we climbed into the briar patch, and that was terrible. It was terrible. We got all scratched up. We were bleeding and really scared, and still trying to shake off the effects of the LSD or orange sunshine or whatever it was they put in our food. And then 30 minutes later, there was about a dozen guys with flashlights, shotguns, and bloodhounds all over the area. The place was lit up like a torch. Wow. And those dogs were sniffing. They were barking. They were right on that briar patch. But I don't know. I understand that dogs will go into briar patches sometimes, but these dogs were not going to go in there. I mean, it must have been divine intervention because those dogs were not going in there. And so several hours went by. They kept circling and looking and looking. Finally, the leader of the group that was looking for us said, "There's no way they're in that briar patch that would kill them. Let's go on down the mountain. Let's go in that thicket of trees over there. They're probably hiding in there." And so then dawn was breaking. We climbed out of the briar patch and we climbed back up the mountain. We're all bloody. I shouldn't say muddy and bloody, but we were muddy and bloody. And so we're walking down the road. A cop came along. He saw us. He was, the look on his face was look of horror because we were just bleeding from head to toe. We're all dirty and bloody. And so he had us sit in the back of the cruiser and he questioned us. And then, he found out that we were the abducted teenagers from Florida. I think I sent you the newspaper article about it.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah. And so they took us to the hospital. They treated all of our numerous lacerations and abrasions. And then they contacted North Carolina Child Services, and they had us stay in a safe house. We stayed in a lovely Southern Belle's house. She had a Swiss style chalet on the side of a mountain overlooking a stream. Her name was Audrey. I think she's passed away by now, but what a lovely, lovely woman. And so she took care of us until North Carolina could coordinate our interstate. Back then, they probably still have it. It's called the Interstate Flight for Runaways, and that's basically free transportation to get you back to where you're going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so you were how old at this time?
I was 14 years old.
Okay. 14?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Sorry, I'm playing with my lights here. I'm getting dim. So you had, by the time you were 14, you had already been not only MKUltra, but you had been trafficked. And this is your escape at See, I don't know. When we talked, for some reason, I thought it was I thought you were like 16, 17. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I did not realize you were that young.
Let's put it this way, Lily. That was the turning point on how I was able to get out of the main part of it. Now, after that, I did meet a man, and of course, they're always sending people in, to try to rope you back into it. And then so I met my husband, my soon-to-be husband, when I was 18. Then we had a couple of children, and then he turned out to be like the Trojan horse or the wolf in sheep's clothing. Then he basically told me after we had 2 kids that I was going to be a breeder, basically for the mafia.
Jeez.
And and so then I divorced him. We were on the run again.
Okay,
and we went up to North Florida and hid out, and then so then he just finally gave up on us, and he enlisted in the Army and took off to Germany. So then I was able to divorce him. But in the meantime, after I thought the smoke had cleared, and I was safe to come back home, the day I got back into town with my kids, this mafia boss was knocking on my door. And he was like, and I don't know how the heck he knew that I was back in town. It was really eerie how they were able to track my movements. But he's knocking on the doors, we're unpacking, and then he's like laughing. He's just like being like very laughing and like really sinister. And he goes, "Oh, well, I heard you were back in town." And I was so terrified and fed up by this point. I just got in this mobster's face and I said, "Look, I heard that you're trying to use me as a breeder to buy and sell my kids." And I said, "Get the F out of here." I gave him a couple of choice words, and he just laughed his head off. He goes, "Well, your mother isn't going to let that happen. I don't think your mother's going to let that happen to you." Wow. And then finally he left, and and then I was able to like pretty much escape from the rest of it. But yeah, so the kidnapping thing was the turning point in starting to finally break away from it.
Okay, let me ask you this for people who have never heard that term. You said that they wanted to use you as a breeder. Can you, because I mean, I know, I've heard many testimonies of this, but can you explain to us what a breeder, I mean, we know what a breeder is, but what purpose is this for? And what all do they do with these kids?
They think that you're a commodity, like a cow or a pig, like you're going to make, babies for them, and they're going to sell the babies on the black market for a lot of money.
Like to good adoption home, not that it's acceptable, but like good adoption homes? Or are we talking about breeding them for trafficking?
Just selling the children to other criminals.
Wow. You know, I know this is hard for a lot of people to hear, but I mean, here's the thing. This is the truth. This is the world around you. And it could be your neighbor. It's just like, Carol living in Minnesota on a farm. Who would have known that she was being groomed for all this? I did have a question. I've got it stopped up here. And I haven't been highlighting y'all stuff really. I forgot because I've been listening to Carol. But Unmasked Truth says she's curious if Carol can speak of the Tavistock Clinic/Institute, as they have socially engineered society through these various programs of mass brainwashing and psychological warfare. Do you know anything about that, Carol?
Just a thumbnail sketch. My expertise is really with what went on with Milgram and Delgado and Colin Ross, who was the head of MKUltra. He was a psychologist, and he was basically the one that brought LSD into the United States. Not Timothy Leary, as reported. It's actually Dr. Colin Ross did that. I just know a thumbnail sketch, but yes, I do know about. We call them brain trusts. Children of the CIA. We call those groups brain trusts. It's just like a bunch of criminals, and there's a lot of smart people in there too. I mean, look at all these psychologists and neuroscientists and stuff that they've enlisted to help them to perfect all this stuff. But there's many of them. There's Tavistock, there's the Rand Institute. There was one that's not widely known called Operation Brain Trust. There's so many of them. It gets honestly, it gets very toxic researching all this stuff. And yeah. I've had to really decompress. Sometimes I'll just take a whole day and I'll just sleep the whole day because I just really need to decompress, from the toxicity of all of this.
Oh, I imagine. And I mean, just me studying it, and I did this years ago when I first started looking at some of this stuff. But yeah, it's very depressing. And I mean, I didn't have to live that. I've got my own story, but it has nothing to do with that. And wow, I got depressed and almost hopeless feeling, realizing this is the world around you, and how do we do anything about it? Because there are children every day suffering in this kind of thing.
Yeah, the last statistic that I looked at was back from 2021 or 2022, and it was 475,000 children go missing in America each year on an average, and a lot of those honestly are some of them are runaways. A lot of them are custody battles. One parent takes the child because of a custody battle because they don't want to pay child support or whatever. But then a good percentage of them are taken from what I call modern day slavery.
Yeah.
And it's usually for sex, but sometimes it's to go pick tomatoes on the farm. They can't find any cheap labor, so they just steal some kids to go, pick cotton or something. It can be they can be drug mules. A lot of my activist friends were used as drug mules. Also to carry sensitive secrets that they don't want on recordings or written down anywhere. That's another type of sleeper where they'll give you a set of instructions to tell. They'll put you on a plane, and maybe you'll get on plane in West Palm Beach, and they'll send you to Heidelberg, Germany, and your only task is to repeat what the person told you on the other end and then fly back, because they don't want it written down anywhere. They don't want a digital imprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, and you were talking about the amount of kids who are missing, but you were never, I mean, other than the time that you were, kidnapped for those few days, like you weren't missing. This was going on while you wouldn't have been a statistic for that. This is just going on in plain sight.
Yeah, because my parents were blackmailed into it, because my father came in as an illegal immigrant in 1939. And he didn't want to go back to the old country because World War II was just breaking out at that time, and Finland has a very strict conscription protocol. I mean, they can conscript you all the way up to 60 years of age, which is terrible.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was prime time to be conscripted into the Finnish army, and I also think that he didn't want to be used again as a stud,
right,
to further the bloodline. I think it was a multifaceted array of reasons of why he did. But so then, the OSS got a hold of him, which later became it was actually the precursor of the CIA, was called the Office of Strategic Services. And then the later incarnation is what we know as the CIA.
That is, I mean, yeah. Well, and Trump had said he wanted the CIA to be disbanded, and we know, we don't know a whole lot, but what we do know that's been declassified is, they're not a good organization.
No, they're degenerates, honestly. My human rights friends and I have talked about it extensively, especially Lynn Moss. I spent a lot of time. Lynn Moss Sharman, who's she passed away several years ago, but she was a well-known MKUltra activist in Canada, and she would like scream in the middle of the night and say, you MFers, I'm going to get you. She would just scream into the night. You know what I mean? They just, in a lot of ways, Lynn was hurt by them even more than I was. I think her programming, her assassin programming was more intricate than even mine was.
Wow. Yeah, I can't. And you said she has passed away now.
Yeah, to 2014 she passed away.
Wow. Yeah, I would I would love to. I can't, we can't plagiarize, but I would love to maybe even put clips of her story up if I don't get a copyright strike for that. I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, I was her friend. There's pictures of her and I together, in the documentary, and so I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable saying my commentary of my experience of being her friend over the years. So, I mean, I can give you a lot of insight on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. And someone says Bill Barr's dad was OSS, so was Trump's Uncle Joe. And that's Nikola Tesla operations World War II. Now, I don't know. I mean, I know who Tesla is. I know a lot about that, but was he OSS too? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the rabbit holes go so deep, as you know. Us true crime junkies, we know that they're vast. It's a vast network of things, and there's a lot of people play a lot of different roles. Like, Dr. Stanley Milgram reportedly died in 1984. Not so. He's only died in recent years. Okay.
Oh, really?
He's only died in recent years, and he passed away here in Palm Beach in his 90s. And, so that's, they like to go underground and wear disguises, and they're very Machiavellian. They like to play different roles. they'll say, oh, this person was killed off, or this person died of natural causes, and they'll wear a disguise. Like, even in our modern age, they have those hyper realistic masks that they can wear, and you can just like totally change your whole appearance. They love doing that. That's what the CIA loves to do. They're very Machiavellian.
Wow. Okay, so Pam Frenchman had asked earlier, at what age did you realize that you had, I don't know, how, explain to us, did you have like memories come back of MKUltra? Did you always remember some things, or was it like a big revelation at some point in your life?
Yeah, it was a big revelation. I had gotten into a very bad car accident, and this was when I was slowly starting to deprogram. I had people come into my life that were slowly trying to, take the shoehorn and get me out of it. I had at this time I was an accounting manager in a big company, and we had had a Christmas party, and I had one too many spiked eggnogs, and luckily there wasn't anybody in the car. I didn't really drive anybody in the car if I was driving drunk, and I usually didn't drive drunk, but this night I did, because I felt like I could. And so I'm driving home from this Christmas party, and so I started to lose consciousness. And it's like all the lights and the cars and everything were like in a kaleidoscope of images, and like spider vision or whatever. And so I lost consciousness, and then I crashed through a guardrail, and luckily the guardrail somewhat broke my momentum, so I came to a stop, teetering precariously on the edge of a canal bank right next to a college.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was very bad. I went to jail. I had to go to victim impact panel, and about drunk driving. And I had never had any drunk driving, but my parents had just died. And so I had, basically what it was I had a meltdown in my program, because they were my main handlers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was like some kind of a short circuit in my programming, because my main handlers were dead now. My parents passed away both in 1995. And so I went through the whole, probation process and everything. And so I couldn't drive that year. I lost my driving privileges for that year. And one of my friends, stopped her car, and she parked in the parking lot behind the bus stop while I was waiting for the bus to go to work. And she sat down, and I think she was like, I don't know, I think she was after my husband or something at that time. But she started to give me little hints, and she goes, you looked really good in those movies back in the day, and I don't know if you, and so my head just exploded. I go, whoa. I mean, so I guess my alters had like sublimated all that stuff, all that previous chapter of my life. And she just like very sadistically, just brought all that back up. And so that was basically, I started going to the library and researching things, and just basically trying to get myself out of it. I started calling all over the United States. I got into contact with Dr. Preston Bailey, who's a lovely Baptist minister. Then he introduced me to his friend, who is a gentleman by the name of Wendell Amstutz, who runs a television station in Rochester, Minnesota. He's also a minister. And so they were really the two fairy godfathers that started helping me, deprogram, and getting me in touch with other activists and other survivors.
Wow.
So that was in the mid 1990s.
Wow. So it was a good long time after everything ended that you actually remembered. Wow.
Yeah, because there's programs in place to make you sublimate things, to kind of like push it down. Like I'm going to use the snake in a can. You know how when we had our kids, we had the snake in the can, and you push it all down and put the lid back on. But then when you take the lid off, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like then all this stuff comes out, and it's really frightening.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, but you were very brave to start reaching out to people, to researching, because, a lot of people, Carol, would have just shoved it back down and, said to themselves, I'm crazy. This is nuts. I don't know what she's talking about. I don't, and I think it takes a lot of strength of character and mind to face it head on, that kind of thing. I mean, have you seen evidence of the films that you were in?
No, they basically were sold in the underground in Europe, like Holland and also Scandinavia and stuff. I don't think they were widely distributed in the United States, but I know they were available in the Netherlands and Scandinavia and maybe Germany too.
So how did this chick know about it? Just because she was already in on the whole program?
Well, she was friends with our family, and I wasn't too close to her, but we would go to Christmas parties, and she would be there. And she was married to one of my husband's friends, but I think she was just one of these like meddlers or troublemakers. I think she just wanted to see maybe if she could get with my husband or something, and and she knew that I was in a very, precarious state because I had just had a DUI, several months before that. I mean, I couldn't drive, and I think she just wanted to and her name was Carol too, by the way, which made it even worse. But I think she just wanted to rub salt in the wound or whatever.
Wow. So when you talk about being deprogrammed, is it like therapy sessions? Like, how do they deprogram somebody?
Well, there's a lot of talking involved. I right now, my deprogramming is through a VOCA grant, which is victims of violent crimes, and the government pays for it. And it's like I told you the other day, I'm pretty, it's free. It's a free grant through the government, and I have a very good psychologist. And there's my deprogramming has ranged anything from hypnosis to EMDR, where you pat the top of your head and pat like your shoulders and stuff, I guess it's like a sensory integration.
Oh, tapping like this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's called the process is called, or the technique is called EMDR.
Oh, okay.
And and it's just like trying to integrate. I guess it's like trying to integrate yourself, because when you're put through this type of torture and programming and stuff, you a lot of times you have the sensation of out of body experience, and that can be very destabilizing.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot of people do tapping as very therapeutic. I've tried it. It is very relaxing, but I can see where that would, because you dissociate so easily, I can see where that kind of grounds you. Maybe just I don't know if y'all in chat know what tapping is, but that's how I heard it. That just called tapping. But look it up. It is quite interesting. So then you were,
pardon me?
So you went through a lot of that, and I guess you found people, of course, who were skilled and educated on how to deprogram.
Yeah, and I went through age regression therapy when I first started my therapy. I started with a very snooty Palm Beach therapist. And she had taken me through some age regression hypnosis, which seemed to be somewhat therapeutic. It seemed like it did some good. But then, here's another terrible twist. So then my husband, I was trying to divorce my husband at that time because my husband my second husband may or may not have been a handler. The jury's still out on that one, but I think he could have been. I think my father could have enlisted him. It's hard to tell sometimes, but so I was trying to divorce him because he was never at home anyway, and I suspected him. I expected he was cheating, so he knew that I was trying to get away. So he enlisted my therapist to try to get a fake psychiatric reprisal on me.
Wow.
And get me thrown into a mental institution, I guess, because we already had 2 children by that time. And I guess he just figured, okay, well, I'll throw her in the nearest garbage can and then I won't have to pay child support, right?
Right.
So I went to the local authorities and they weren't going to help me because, well, most of them are Freemasons and they're part of the problem. So I wasn't getting any help there. And I was desperate. And so I went to I just popped in my head. I said, you know what, damn it, I'm just going to go to the FBI. So I went to the FBI in Palm Beach and I was really scared. I was shaking in my boots. And I said, I just went up to the receptionist and I said, could I speak with an agent, please? And this very good looking, very tall gentleman, probably maybe late 30s, came out. He must have been about 6'7" or 6'8". He's a gentle giant. And he was so kind. And I told him my story and everything about what I was going through and how I was trying to get away from abusers and things of that nature. And he goes, yeah, I know that the local cops around here are worthless as tits on a bull. So, so basically he got my therapist and my husband and we were still married at that time. We were on the verge of getting a divorce, but he got them on a conference call and he goes, if you 2 don't leave this lady alone, he goes, I'm going to bounce both of your asses in jail.
Wow. Wow.
So I just felt like that was divine intervention. I mean, I know that the FBI doesn't normally get involved in, little piddly things like that.
Yeah.
But he could see that I was desperate. And so he was very kind. And he said, if they give you any more problems, he goes, just pick up the phone.
Wow. Wow. Geez. So, I know we've got about, before I time out on this plan we've got a little less than 30 minutes. I don't know if you want to add to some more tonight, or do you want to come back, do a Q&A?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. So, like, maybe next time we'll let you finish up with, you said you have children, and I mean, not to, give too much information about yourself, but I know you do some incredible things with the UN, and I know you've touched some on it, but we can finish up, and maybe I'll ask, people to bring their questions. There were some questions in the group, but I didn't want to interrupt you, so I'll go back and look at that too. I mean, that's an incredible story, Yeah,
and I've just scratched the surface. There's more.
Yeah, so I mean, next time, and look, if we have the same problems, I've been holding my phone here. That's fine. They can hear you. I don't think there's a problem. We've got a few minutes. Anything else that you want to add for tonight?
No. So my main motivation, since I've been an activist for the last 17, almost 18 years, is to educate the public. I mean, everybody knows that you have to keep your children close, but I say take it one step further. Our society, I mean, I'm a Christian and I don't want to push my beliefs on anybody, but I think that we're in the end of days, honestly. And I think there's some very malevolent and dark forces, that are after our children. And you just really, folks, monitor your kids' social media. I'm not too tech savvy, but I mean, track your children's cell phone activities. Honestly, what happened with Abby and Libby could have been so prevented. I mean, who sends their kids to a remote, creepy park with a dilapidated bridge? I mean, honestly, it's It's terrible. I would have never let my children go to a place like that. So please just be very, very careful. It's the old saying, if you see something, say something. Don't hesitate, especially call the 1-800 line for for trafficking and so forth. I actually know the director, Nancy McBride. She's a very lovely woman. I actually gave her a presentation several years ago. So I was very privileged to do that. So folks, just really keep your eyes peeled, keep your kids really, really close, because there's some really dark forces that are after our kids.
Oh yeah. I mean, and people hear a story like this and sometimes they think, oh, that's unbelievable, and I get it. I do. But I would say this, do your research, do your homework. What is that syndrome or that, I can't think what it's called. My mind went out to lunch, where basically you don't,
Stockholm syndrome.
Well, not Stockholm, but like where people prefer to believe that something is a lie because so they don't have to, deal with the truth. And there's something for that. Anyway, let me see. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Justice. She put up the cyber tip line on trafficking, and but yeah, people don't want to hear it because they don't want to deal with it. It's so easy to just say someone is, oh, they're crazy. This doesn't happen. Our government doesn't do this. I challenge you. First of all, MKUltra is declassified. So if you don't know about that, we did that in the last live. I mean, just go look it up. But I mean, you have no idea what the world is around you. And I mean, Carol, you really didn't. I mean, this was your whole life, like all your life.
Yeah, because the CIA has a protocol. When you get in this program, they map out your whole life, and you think that you're just an average Joe or Jill just going along. Not so. they're in their. I call them they're shadow men. They're in the shadows, manipulating your every move, and it's really frightening and it's very disheartening. And a lot of people commit suicide. I mean, most of us have a suicide program loaded into it, and myself included. But I've integrated that now. I mean, I've deprogrammed from it, and I'm okay now. But 20 years ago, not so. I was in very bad shape. I was a very, very broken toy 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, and we'll talk about that more. Let me ask you real quick, because you were talking about your friend Lynn being an assassin. Would she have been considered like a CIA sleeper, or did she already?
Yeah, she was. Yes, she was, because she was a victim of Dr. Jose Delgado, Dr. Martin Orney, and Dr. Colin Ross, who were all the bigwigs at that time. Now, Dr. Stanley Milgram wasn't really considered in that lineup, but he came in through the side door and said, "Hey, I'm going to join in on this fun too," apparently. And so what I aim to do with my book is bring a fresh fire to this whole thing, because there's a lot of books on Dr. Milgram's obedience to authority that he did at Yale and Harvard universities, but there has been little or nothing written about the Cyranoids. And I honestly think maybe some of the Cyranoids didn't live to tell about it, but I did live to tell about it. And I'm the one that got away. And that's what the new incarnation of my book, Good Name is Better Than Money, is going to bring out, is our government's basically war on the people, on their own people, with non-consensual experimentation.
Yeah, because people think that doesn't happen, right? That all died with MKUltra. Sure it did. Okay. Well, I want to get a list of questions, and I don't know what they'll throw at us next time, but we'll set up a time for you to come back, finish whatever else you want to add, the rest of your story. And I know people are going to have a ton of questions. So, and y'all, I think you need to remember that this was like when she was in this is like way back in the 70s. So, things that are going on now, you probably don't know, that much about. I'm assuming. I don't know. But I'm assuming.
I've been researching it, and you're absolutely right, Lily. It's gone more underground, and the control is a much finer technique. They have frequencies that they can use, like millimeter waves, microwaves, sonic waves. Who knows? One of the things is called remote neural monitoring, and the other one is called, well, there's directed energy weapons, there's remote neural monitoring, and there's V2K, as in Victor to Catherine. So you can look all of those things up. There are patents on those techniques. I mean, it's not just conspiracy theory. It's like you say, conspiracy fact. There's patents on those techniques and those weapons, and so I think that they've perfected it, down to a science now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. With technology, especially. Before we go, I know some people are asking because of triggered by the Netflix series Stranger Things. Montauk right now is still officially a conspiracy theory, as was MKUltra before it was declassified. But have you ever met anyone from Montauk?
No, but my friend Lynn did. I never met those people, but my friend Lynn did, because for some reason, and if when you read her interview with Canadian radio, for some reason they like to take the Canadians to New York. I really don't know what the motivation was. That maybe it was a bloodline, because I know that in my case I was targeted for my bloodline. But yes, Lynn did know people who had been a part of Montauk.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to listen to that, and I'm going to be a whole lot more educated by the time that we do our next live and we finish your story and do Q&A. Yeah, and let me just respond to this. Yeah, Jennifer, yes, if you missed most of the show, do watch the replay. It is a fascinating story, and we're not done with it. And she also has a book coming out, so I'm excited about that, to take a real deep dive. But I mean, Carol, I want to thank you so much for coming on here. And, this is one of those things that is timeless. My hope with doing shows like this, I love Delphi, I love true crime, but they have an expiration date, and this is timeless. I hope that in 10 years or so, somebody comes across this video that needs to hear it, that gives them some kind of hope.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Lily. It's kind of like, metaphorically speaking, it's a relay race. Like, without my ladies in the UN, and it really pisses me off that I had to go to Canada to get help with this.
Yeah.
But my ladies in the UN, and then my dear friend Lynn Moss, who has passed away, they were all catalysts in my healing, and I'm dedicating my books to them. I'm dedicating my documentaries to them. It's a debt that I'm never going to be able to repay. So I just thank them. I just thank them every day of my life, because they basically saved my life. And so now I've been handed the baton, and now it's not, I have to step up to the plate and help others, because I know that there's millions more survivors like myself out there that need to be, like sleepers that need to be awakened, and get integrated, and and be happy and successful members of society, like everyone deserves to be.
Right. Absolutely. One more time, because someone asked, and now the name of her first book was Escape from Palm Beach, but that is not in print any longer. She has added to it, and I guess I don't know. It's going to a second printing, which will be out we hope the end of this year or beginning of next. And Carol, say that name one more time.
It's going to include the prequel, which is how my father got involved in the CIA. So it's entitled "A Good Name is Better Than Money."
And absolutely, when we know that book is coming out, I want you to come, back on, even if it's, even if you only have a short time or whatever, and, let us know, give us some more information on, and we'll set up a link or something so people can get your book.
Okay. I really appreciate that, Lily. And, the long-term goal now is to make a film, and I don't even care if it gets to Hollywood, but I would like to make a short feature film on it. And my dream is to get to the Sundance Festival in Idaho. That would be like the cherry on the sundae. So that's what we're working on for a long-term goal.
Wow. Yeah. Do keep us updated, which I know you're always in the chats and you're always in the comments of the channel. So, but yeah, just let us know. And before I time out, I'm going to go ahead and close the show. Thank you all who hung in with us the whole time. I know a lot of people, it's hard for me to watch a long live without, having to go back and pick it up on the replay. But to all of those who hung out the whole time, thank you so much. Thank you, Carol, so much for being open and willing and for everything that you're doing.
Oh, you're welcome. And God bless all of you. I consider you all my brothers and sisters out there. We got to stick together. You know what I mean? We got to have each other's backs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to let you get some rest. Carol, I know you're probably exhausted from going through all the memories again, but we'll set up a time, hopefully within this next week or as soon as we can. We'll just do it as soon as we can get it together and let you finish. And so y'all be thinking about questions that you have. In the meantime, look up some of this stuff. Look up Montauk. Look up MKUltra and Project Bluebird and down the rabbit hole, the never-ending rabbit hole, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, I will see you next time, y'all. All stay safe, stay silky, and once again, give Carol some love. Give her a thumbs up, whatever. Oh, you yeehaw, woohoo, something. All right.
Okay, thanks, Lily. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night. I'll see y'all later.